Poe was born a poet. His mind is stamped with the impress of genius. He is, perhaps, the most original writer that ever existed in America. Delighting in the wild and visionary, his mind penetrates the inmost recesses of the human soul, creating vast and magnificent dreams, eloquent fancies, and terrible mysteries. Quote from George Lippard in The Citizen Soldier of Philadelphia on November 15th, 1843. Good
Yay.
evening, Poe fans, and welcome back to one of our degree episodes.
Dun, dun, dun.
Hi, Jeanie. How's it going?
Carmen, it's going pretty well. We don't have any tornadoes in sight, no thunderstorms looming, so all seems to be quiet on the eastern, western, middle front of Tennessee.
That I know, it's fantastic. Actually, it was beautiful enough for me to go out and work in the front yard today. So,
Woohoo!
yeah, flower
Yeah,
bed.
I actually went out myself. Yay. It was wonderful. And then I was like, nope, gotta go back, hide in my apartment.
Yep, there you go. There you go.
They want to burst into flames like a vampire.
Okay, yeah, no, let's not do that. So, Jeannie, what are we talking about in this degree episode?
Well, considering we are under the literature umbrella, we are going to talk about poetry because in the month of April, it is Poetry Month. And
Yes,
specifically, we are going to discuss Edgar Allan Poe's mastery in that wonderful world of figurative language.
yes. And some people don't want to go there because
Mhm.
it's abstract. There's
Yeah.
very little that's concrete. It's all about the abstract.
Yeah, it is very much the equivalent of the opposite of literal.
Yes,
It is the figurative. So
exactly.
it's just, exaggerations. That's the one thing that always describes figurative language. It's an exaggeration. And it's like, having butterflies in your stomach. If you have butterflies in your stomach, we got more problems than, if you got a little butterfly, then you've been eating some stuff that you probably shouldn't have.
That is very true.
Especially if they're still alive. That's just creepy. Yeah.
I think about that.
Yeah. That brings a whole nother horror thing in there. And we're not talking about horror this time. We're talking about figurative language.
That's right. Yes. So help us celebrate National Poetry Month by
Exactly.
hanging out with us and listening about figurative language.
Hmm.
With Jeannie and I both being English teachers, it is near
Hmm.
and dear to our hearts.
Yep.
Poetry is very near and dear to mine, and
Mine
I
too.
love it. Love to write it, love to read it. And
Hmm.
I think, Jeannie, you have some examples to share just to kind of provide our audience with some of the ones that probably, I'm sure you chose some of the top.
The top six, basically, that most of us have used or know about in figurative language. And some are just so simple, and some are very hard. I know, especially when I used to teach it, the kids would always get mixed up. It's easy in one sense and hard in the other. Because number one is that simile that compares two different things using the words like or as to draw attention to the comparison. So if you
Exactly.
use like or as, for an example, the very mystery of him excited her curiosity like a door that had neither lock nor key.
Uh-huh.
Specifically, that was from wonderful, Gone with the Wind with Margaret Mitchell, you
Nice.
know.
Very nice.
So using the like that brings it that a door that has neither lock nor key and using it to describe the mystery of the person, Mr. Rhett Butler himself. So, and then a metaphor. What's a metaphor? Place where the cows live. But okay, no. Sorry. Bad joke. Bad joke. All right. A metaphor describes an object or an action in a way that isn't literally true, but it helps explains the idea or make a comparison. So it's a lot like a simile, but it doesn't use like or as. That's always the trick that the kids always trip themselves up on.
I want to,
So,
I agree totally with that. And
mhm,
one of the ways I always teach it now is
mhm,
something equals something. I tell them to think
mhm,
about it like a math brain.
mhm.
And when you have that, like each side of the equation, they have to equal each other. And the kids tend to get it better whenever I explain
Yeah,
it that way.
yeah. And it's just always like you're comparing apples to oranges without using like. This is
Yes.
the way I
Yeah,
always told them. And then, of
absolutely.
course, personification. Now, personification was always the easiest one for me to describe because it's giving human characteristics to non human or abstract things. For example, in the wonderful world of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe,
Hmm.
the King Aslan, I think that was his name, right?
That's
Aslan?
right. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. The king
Been a
who was
while.
was a lion, but they gave him human characteristics. He could
Hmm.
walk, he could talk, he was running a kingdom. So that's about the personification going on there. And then hyperbole. I love hyperbole.
Not hyperbole.
Yeah, not hyperbole. Please, no. It's hyperbole.
Yes.
So it's the great exaggeration, often unrealistic, to add emphasis to sentiment. For example, from The Telltale Heart from Edgar Allan Poe. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Talking about a major hyperbole and exaggeration, really can't hear all the things in heaven and earth and in hell.
Right.
Just doesn't work that way.
And many times hyperbole comes with that qualifying word all.
Hmm. Yeah, because a lot of the people don't understand all is everything. And
Yes,
that's where you kind of come in with the major exaggeration because it's very rare you can encompass all.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
then the next one is illusion, not illusion.
That's
So,
exactly how I
illusion.
teach it.
The way I always
Illusion,
had
not
to teach it.
illusion.
It's in the A, not the I. So it's referencing pre-existing persons, works, events, or well-known piece of pop culture.
Hmm.
For, fear's kryptonite is laughter. That's from Rochelle E. Goodrich in Slaying Dragons. So
Okay.
fear's kryptonite is laughter. So giving an illusion, don't make me have to explain to you what the illusion I'm alluding to
I am
here.
alluding to this.
Yes, I'm alluding to kryptonite, which comes from what comic?
Superman.
That's right. That's the main man right there. Woo
Hmm.
woo. So that's the illusion in that aspect. And
That's,
then number six, this is one of the ones that's one of my favorites. It's the idiom.
oh, yes.
Every time I would explain this to the kids, one of them would always say, Miss Smith, are you calling me an idiot? No, I said idiom. Idiom.
Not an ID10T error.
Exactly. It's commonly used phrase or expression that we all do, taken as a whole, has a meaning that differs from the literal meaning of the individual words.
Hmm.
For example, see, some of these are really fun that I used to love to use.
Oh,
When
yeah.
I looked outside this morning, it was raining cats and
And
dogs.
dogs. Yes.
So that was an expression that we always, especially in my neck of the woods, we would use all the time to explain that it was raining really, 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 really hard.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I would always add with idioms is that it is going to create a picture in your mind of the figurative message. It's not what
Yeah.
it really means, but if you think about cats and dogs falling from the
Hmm.
sky, that's what it's figuratively showing you. And I think that's why I love idioms so much, just having an imagination and thinking about them.
Yeah, for example, here's another one. Tell somebody a big secret, and then, if they happen to just let that secret out, you start fussing at them. Why'd you go and spill the beans?
Ex-
And so it gives you that visual in your mind of what would happen if you just dumped out all these beans on the floor, and it'd be a bad thing.
exactly. Exactly.
So it gives the mind the imagination to fit with the literal, is the
Yes.
way I always used to explain it.
Absolutely.
It's just a wonderful way. So those are the main six that I always kind of look for or use the most. And they are used the most in my opinion in a lot of things, especially personification and
Yes.
simile and metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
Idioms not so much. Hyperbole, yes,
It,
but illusion, it's very rare. Or when people use it, if someone else can't catch the illusion,
mm-hmm.
then it's kind of like, okay, if you are, how can I say it, regularly read in certain areas when someone's alluding to something, then you'll
Right.
probably get it half the time. Like
Yeah.
with the kryptonite, it was only one word of kryptonite, but everybody pretty much knows where kryptonite was originated from.
Absolutely. And when you think about illusions from
Mhm.
before we had pop culture, it was pretty much from classical literature, mythology, or the Bible. And so
Right.
illusions have definitely evolved over time. And I think more modern poets, they still use some of those, I don't want to say old timey, but more
Hmm.
traditional illusion.
Yeah, classic,
Yes.
classic tradition.
They still use some traditional ones. I know in my poetry, I sometimes do that. And so it really just depends on the writer and what they're trying to
Mhm.
convey in the meaning to have that reference.
Yeah, it has to be, in my opinion, it has to be something that would automatically trigger a response in the reader. So I think that's why most people choose the more common ones. Like if we talk about mythology, and especially, uh, I used to make like when it lightened and thunder, it was always a joke about how the gods were playing the Olympics in,
Yes.
because Zeus was throwing lightning bolts and Atlas was rolling the stone up the mountain.
Hmm.
Although, yeah, that was Atlas. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
That
yeah.
was Greek. Sometimes, it's very easy to mix up the Greek and the Roman.
Oh, it is so easy. I have to question myself sometimes. And if I'm
Mhm.
saying something when I'm teaching, sometimes I'll look it up just to make sure I'm like Greek, Roman. Greek created
Yeah.
them. Roman kind of stole the names.
Well, I mean, it's just like the name of the planets and everything else. It's
Hmm.
like, okay, well, they're named after Roman gods, not Greek gods,
Right, exactly.
which is really kind of what? Like, yeah,
It's like,
okay.
okay, why did you have to do that? Why can't you make things easy? Kind of like that we're totally getting off topic, but
Yes.
the
Well, we're doing the illusion thing.
absolutely. But like when you think about the two types of measuring systems, you have,
Hmm.
the metric
Metric,
system and then what we use.
yeah,
I always forget the
which is the non-metric. I
yeah,
always just say metric and non-metric.
absolutely, absolutely. But most of the world uses the metric system, but we have to be
Yeah.
different. So,
Of course, we do. We have to.
oh,
So, and most people might be thinking, why are we talking about figurative language? Well, hello, we're talking about Poe.
well, and you can't have poetry without Poe.
Oh, exactly. And you can't have Poe without having figurative language
Yes,
because the man was very good at it. Um,
genius level, genius
yes.
level. It just the poem I'm going to share in a moment. I was going to say, Jeannie, I haven't decided who's sharing which one.
You can share first because yours is all nice and color coded. Mine isn't.
That's a little extra time today. But yes,
Yeah.
my poem that I chose has two stanzas. And it is like almost every single line has something in it. That's how good he was. And yes, I did color code mine. And I also decided to choose the poem that I did because it is a very abstract concept, but because it's kind of like, the figurative is so abstract, I was like, okay, let's just throw all of it in here. So, all right,
Yeah.
I'm going to share my screen
Okay.
and find it. Here we go. And so I chose a dream within a dream. And when you think about a dream within a dream, you've got
Mhm.
life, you've got a person having a dream, but then also having a dream within that dream. And so
Mhm.
the best concept that kind of, I guess, modern day to kind of think about it is the movie Inception, because it's got all
Mhm.
of those dreams. And it's like at the end, I don't want to give anything away, but it's like what was reality and what was a dream. So it's kind of cool
Oh,
to think
yes.
about. So with this poem, as you can see, like I said, there are only really three full lines that I did not mark. And I do have a few different types of figurative language devices that Jeannie did not mention, but one of them is probably more common than the other ones that I'm going to talk about. So let's do the ones that Jeannie went over first, just because it'll be easier, just because you've got the information. So with personification, giving characteristics to an inanimate object, making them human, you've got, yet if hope has flown away, hope cannot fly.
Mhm.
And so in a way, it's a little hyperbole too, or hyperbolic.
Mhm.
I like saying hyperbolic.
Hyperbolic. Well, that's a whole different thing.
I
Hyperbolic
know.
chamber, you know. So,
And then another line of personification of a surf tormented shore. The shore, like the picture behind me, cannot
mm,
be tormented. It doesn't have feelings in order to do that.
exactly.
And I'll explain what the asterisks are in when I go over the other ones. And then one from the pitiless wave. A wave cannot feel pity.
No, at least you don't think so, because it
Right.
technically it is living per se, but it is not a um thinking, breathing,
Yeah,
intellectual,
exactly.
object,
It's not a
subject.
brain. Yes. It
Hmm.
has lots of things, but a brain, well, it's got lots of brains within it.
Oh, well, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
Okay, so I'm going to go next to hyperbole. Like I said, I'm going to go through the ones that Jeannie mentioned. So hyperbole and exaggeration, all that we see or seem, that all qualifies it. We cannot see every single thing or
Mhm.
seem every single thing. So it jumps right out there at you as hyperbole. And then it's repeated a little bit differently, is all that we see or seem, because it's forming our question to the next line. And so what I think is really kind of cool with both personification and hyperbole, look how nicely it's spread out. It's like
Yeah,
personification, you've got something kind of at the beginning, the middle, the end, and then hyperbole is in both the end of each stanza, but it also
mhm,
ties into just the repetition, which is also a poetic device. But
absolutely.
we're not necessarily we'll talk about it, mentioning it here, but not as much. Okay, so all the other ones in here are not ones that Jeannie mentioned. And so
Mhm.
I'll just jump back to alliteration. So alliteration is when you have similar words that start with the same sound at the beginning of it. It's actually a sound device. And so if you think about from childhood, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Sally sells
Mhm.
seashells by the seashore.
Down seashore. Yeah.
And so I have tried to master saying that little bit faster than saying it very slow, just because it flows better.
How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
Exactly. And so if you notice, so those are orange. There's several in here. So you've got that my days have been a dream. You've got the days in the dream. Then you've got
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the first stanza is but a dream within a dream, even though the word is repeated again, it still counts.
Mm-hmm.
And and I hold within my hand. And then the next line I love, grains of the golden sand. And then this one is just beautiful alliteration. While I weep, while I weep.
Yep.
That one's really cool. And then at the end, but a dream within a dream. So he likes the alliteration, and he's got a lot of that in The Raven too.
Yeah, and alliteration is always useful, especially in poetic device for helping with rhythm.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the two that kind of go hand in hand, and I'm going to jump to those next, are assonance and consonants. And so
Mm-hmm.
consonants is when you have a similar consonant sound within a line of poetry. And so what I marked is actually, I think all of the examples are anything that had more than one type of device in the line. I just put an asterisk at the end with the color. That's why I did that. And so, like for instance, this line right here, and I hold within my hand, you've got the asterisk right here. You've got the I sound. You got I within, and that is consonants. And then
Mm-hmm.
another line, while I weep, you've got a lot of I's, you've got a lot of E's, or I'm sorry, a lot of, no, what am I saying? The W's and the H's. I think I may have marked that. Yeah, because that actually, I meant to mark that twice because it's got assonance too.
Absolutely.
Yes. But, and then also too, yeah, the, hold on. Yeah, and I hold within my hand. That was actually supposed to have assonance on it too. Forgot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I kind of got carried away. All right, and so now assonance is a repetitive within the line of vowel sounds. And so, when I always talk to my students about this, it's like consonant, you have a consonant, consonants. But why didn't they call it valence? They had to call it assonance.
Well, I think it goes back to the whole antonym and the synonym thing.
I think so too. And it's just funny because you get giggles with the word.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think I did because of a surf tormented shore, you've got the O sound and the U, the or, the sir, poor, chore, all of that. And then also, again, like I said, I meant to mark and I hold within my hand. The I sound is very prominent there. And then while I weep, you've got the I and you've also got the double E.
Yeah.
And then going back up, okay, talked about hyperbole. Apostrophe is when this one's not used a lot, and they are kind of rhetorical questions. But when you can call it apostrophe, it's like you're asking a question to something either where someone has gone, someone has died, or there is nothing there. And so in this case, you've got, is it therefore the less gone? And so
Right.
talking about hope and how it's flown away. And he was talking to his love, but he's lost his love because they're not there anymore. And
Yeah, and a lot of the time you can um equate this a lot to a rhetorical question
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
because you're asking a question, but either there's no one there to answer
You
or
don't
the
want an
answer is
answer.
just
Right.
given because you can't really, you're
Yeah.
not asking for an answer.
Right. So it's, I mean, that's what I say. They are rhetorical questions, but it's also apostrophe because
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing there to answer. And then also too, oh God, can I not grasp them with a tighter clasp, oh God. And so again, that brings about that apostrophe because God is not physical that we can see.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we have after that symbolism. We have sand, and sand it represents the passing of time. So you can basically say sand equals time. And so, or
True.
sand equals loss. You can,
Mm-hmm.
a couple of things. And then imagery, to me, all figurative language devices are kind of imagery because imagery represents the five senses. So you either got to, the line has got to do something to, you've got to feel it, touch it, taste it, see it, or hear it. And some things like, yet if hope is flown away, I didn't mark that, but it technically you're visualizing something with that line.
Mm-hmm.
Take this kiss upon my brow, like somebody is kissing you up on your forehead. You can feel it, you can see it coming. Then grains of the golden sand. You can see the sands of time basically creeping with the next line through the fingers to the deep waters of the ocean, feeling the loss of the love that he's feeling in this poem. And so again, I marked through my fingers to the deep because you can feel it, you can see it, you might even be able to hear it. You can hear it, especially with the deep representing the ocean. And then one from the pitiless wave. And you can see like asking that question. No, the wave cannot be, full of pity, but you can, it's giving you the image of the loss.
Yeah. And it also goes back to water itself and the
Yeah,
ocean itself, and especially how the tide comes in and then it washes away like what, the sand that was being trampled on during the day
right.
and setting it anew again. So
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah, the
another
tide
type of
coming
it.
in. Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
And then the last one, so metaphors exist within poems, in short stories, novels, metaphors exist everywhere. But then there's another level of metaphors when you have an extended metaphor. And
Hmm.
when you think about the dream within a dream, it's the speaker of the poem is feeling all of this loss, and basically it's woven all the way through the poem. And when you have an extended metaphor, it's a bigger picture of what the comparison is to based on what the whole poem is saying. And so
Exactly.
yeah, this whole poem is all about loss and how the loss is causing the speaker to feel that it's all surrealistic. It's like, am I, am I here alone? Am I still alone? Why can I not just go within a dream? That way I can still see my love.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, and the cool thing is that not only does Poe do all this wonderful figures of speech and everything in his poems, but his titles themselves
yeah,
speak of the figurative language.
yes, absolutely.
Now, I have had a dream within a dream before because
Mhm.
those are the times when you're dreaming, but you actually think you're awake, but you're in a dream.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Creepy.
then when you wake up, you're like, what in the world just happened?
Absolutely. I've had those too. And I apologize for accidentally marking some of these incorrectly. Again, they've got a lot of them have both and stuff.
Multiple,
Yeah,
yeah, they can be used in multiple ways, and
absolutely.
that's the thing. There's with figurative language, it is the opposite of literal. Now,
Yep.
literal language, you can have just one explanation. Now,
Yes.
figurative language, you've got many different ways, and
Hmm.
some of these figures of speech can cross over,
Oh my
and
God.
they can be,
Yes.
yeah, they can be used in many different ways.
Yeah,
So
I think so too. All right.
now, yeah,
Jeannie, what did you find to go over?
now of course, mine, and I hate to break it to y'all, but I'm not color coordinated in all this. I'm just gonna show you the poem, and we're gonna talk about it as I read it,
Yes.
so we can see it and we can try to figure it out, just as you're reading, kind of hit you
Hmm.
some of the figures of speech. Now, the one that I chose is spirits of the dead. So that in itself automatically gives you the figurative, because everybody knows spirits of the dead, we usually automatically think of ghosts, and most people don't even think ghosts are real.
Right.
So
Right.
that gives in itself one of those like, is that real? Is it? So here we go.
No.
So we're going to share. Hold
Nice.
on. Let me. There we go.
All
Now,
right.
can everybody see it? There we go. Can you see it, Carmen?
I can.
All right. Cool. All right. So, spirits of the dead, thy soul shall find itself alone mid dark thoughts of the gray tombstone. Not one of all the crowd to pry into thine hour of secrecy. Well, right there. I'm sorry. We
Mhm.
got the key word of
Yep.
all the crowd to pry into thine hour of secrecy. So that is like one whopping hyperbole. Then, of
Absolutely.
course, we started with thy soul shall find itself alone. Well, I'm kind of wondering that, most all should be alone, but mid dark thoughts, most of us like dark thoughts. What could that mean?
Hmm.
Be silent in thy solitude, which is not loneliness, for then the spirits of the dead who stood in life before thee are again. So there we go. That would be kind of a metaphor right there. Spirits of the dead stood in life before they are again. In
Absolutely.
death around thee, and their will shall then o'ershadow thee. Be still. So we got another hyperbole kind of going on here,
You've
a
got
metaphor.
you got a lot of alliteration.
Hmm.
It's soul shall
Yep.
still, and then you've also got the consonants with the shall then overshadow thee.
Be still.
Hmm.
So the night, though clear, shall frown. So we've got personification going on right there,
Hmm.
because the night cannot frown. It's not a person.
Nope.
So, and the stars shall look not down. Once more, personification. Stars neither look up or down because they are in the sky in orbit, so they don't have the compass. There is no up or down in space.
There's no eyeballs in stars.
Exactly. From their high thrones in the heaven. There we go. With light like hope to mortals given. But the red orbs without beam to thy weariness shall seem as a burning and a fever which would cling to thee forever, but 'twill leave thee as each star with the dewdrop flies afar. Oh, there we go again. The dewdrop, they don't fly unless you step really fast into a puddle. But
Now you've got a car driving by going like getting a puddle and
yeah,
splashing it up on
pooch.
somebody at the bus stop.
Exactly. And then talking about the high thrones in the heaven.
Mhm.
I mean that tells you right there. That's hyperbole. You know,
Allusion
it's an
too. Heaven
exaggeration. It's an illusion of heaven.
and
Uh,
alliteration.
hmm The light like hope. There's a simile. Light like hope to mortals giving, but they're red orbs without beams to thy weariness shall seem. So the red orbs, I'm kind of like going, don't know where that one come from. Unless they're talking about what would you think he was meaning by red orbs?
Go back up a couple lines. Let's see. I think it's relating back to the stars and the
Well, that's what
stars.
I was thinking, but I was
Yeah.
thinking of what the red.
And well, when at first I was thinking the sun,
Mhm.
but you would only, I mean, you would have more than one orb or like ray from the sun.
Well,
But
that's the thing that says without beam,
true.
because I was
And
thinking
that's,
rays would be beam.
yeah, because that's kind of what where I was like, well, but and so I'm thinking that he's referring back to the stars.
Yeah, I would think so too, but once more, the only thing I can think of to equate it to red orbs if he is liking it to the sunset.
Yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
know, that mid time between
Uh-huh.
dusk, you know,
Twilight.
when the sun's going down and
Yeah.
the sky has got that red tint to it.
Yes. Yes.
So that was one
I'm
thing
gonna
that I
start
was thinking.
singing Heavenly Shades of Nighttime.
Yeah, there you go.
It's twilight time. Sorry.
Exactly. Now our thoughts thou canst not banish. Now our visions ne'er to vanish. No more, like dewdrop from the grass, from thy spirit shall they pass. The breeze, the breath of God, is still, and the mist upon the hill, shadowy, shadowy yet unbroken, is a symbol and a token. How it hangs upon the trees, a mystery of mysteries.
Love that
So
line.
the last two lines have that rhythm of consonants and
Mhm.
uh, all that. It's how it hangs upon the trees, a
Yep.
mystery, mysteries.
Hmm.
And then of course you have the breath of God
Hmm.
is still, the mist upon the hill, shadowy yet unbroken. Good you, excuse me.
Bless you, Jeannie.
Sorry. It's like it just had to come out at that moment.
That's
So,
okay.
but as you can see, this was written in 1827
Yes.
and there's a lot more to this. I mean, we could break it down even more.
Oh, absolutely. Because I mean, like the line, the breeze, the breath of God is still, you've got alliteration with breeze and breath. You've got consonants, you've got assonance there. You've got the breath of God as an illusion. That one line is chocked full of devices.
Exactly. And then you've got all the metaphors that are in there that aren't just, you know, because they don't have the like or anything.
Right.
Then you've got irony, you've got other things that we could literally just point out all different kinds of figures of speech
Hmm.
and figurative language and just keep going. And most of them they cross over.
Yeah.
But one of the things that he loves in most all his works that we've read is hyperbole
Hmm.
and assonance, consonants, similes, and metaphors.
Yeah. And alliteration's pretty popular too.
Yeah. Alliteration, I always just equate it with most poets,
Yeah.
you know, and well, we could always point out the allusions here because he's alluding to God, he's alluding
Yes.
to heaven,
Mhm.
he is alluding to life after death,
Yes.
talking about the spirit. Uh,
One thing,
he,
actually, go back down, Jeannie. There was one thing I was going to bring up. So, really, I've read this poem multiple times. And the one thing that I'm looking at here, because I've never really broken it down like we're doing right now. And the last couple lines, so is a symbol and a token goes back to the line and the mist upon the hill. And so the mist is a symbol and a token. And so
yep,
does the mist represent the actual spirit?
exactly.
I wonder.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because the whole point is the spirits of the dead.
Hmm.
So then
So,
he is liking the mist upon the hill
mhm,
as a symbol and a token of those spirits that are hanging upon the trees,
yeah.
waiting because it becomes a mystery of mysteries.
Yeah, and it really that's a I never thought of it like this before. Again, like because we're breaking it down, but it's like the mist equals the spirits, and it, we don't know like if you can see them, are they waiting to cross over? Are they trying to finish something that they haven't, didn't do upon the earthly plane? It just brings up lots of questions when you really think about the mist is a symbol, definitely.
Yeah. And then he's also talking about how, would cling to thee forever.
Mm-hmm.
So are we talking about how is the hope that we are going to find something in the heaven?
Right.
Or is he talking about clinging of these spirits? Because now are thoughts thou canst not banish.
Mm-hmm.
Now are visions never to vanish. Because once you think about it, there's no more like dewdrop from the grass, from thy spirit shall they pass.
Mm-hmm.
So once you, it's like he's trying to say that once your soul leaves your body, where does it go? Is it a mist
Wow.
that is waiting for the breath of God? Is it
Uh-huh.
still? Is it a single, is a symbol, a token? This whole last stanza, in my opinion, is just chock full of just figurative language.
Absolutely. It's the question of what happens in the afterlife.
Yeah. I mean, his last line, a mystery of mysteries.
Exactly. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
And yeah, that's why that's why most of the time poems, if you just read them and you get spoken to
Mm-hmm.
as the reader.
Yeah,
Every little thing speaks to each reader differently.
I agree. And that's why
But then
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and that's it makes even more when you start breaking down what, what devices are used to trigger those in the reader.
Mm-hmm.
Like, think about it. The very first thing, thy soul shall find itself alone mid dark thoughts of the great tombstone. So, just within those two lines, he's saying that if you're standing in a graveyard and you're standing at a tombstone, your soul is going to find itself alone,
Yeah.
and
And
not
looking
one.
Yeah, and
What?
looking at the gray tombstone,
Mhm.
reflecting upon your life, probably
Yeah,
before the afterlife.
yeah, and be silent in that solitude, which is not loneliness.
Hmm.
For then the spirits of the dead who stood in life before thee are again. So
Hmm.
he's saying that just because you may be standing there, you are not alone.
Yeah,
Because looking at that tombstone, you can be silent and you can
but
still feel in death around thee, and their will shall then overshadow thee. Be still.
Yeah, and the line, the spirits of the dead who stood in life before thee are again, it reminds me of Annabel Lee with her high-born kinsman came and took her away from me, as
Mhm.
they are the spirits coming to gather Annabel Lee to take her with them to the afterlife. That little part right there reminds me of that.
Exactly. And then in the next, the next stanza it starts, the night though clear shall frown, and the stars shall look not down from their high thrones in the heaven.
Mhm.
So he's just once more he's giving the illusion
Yep.
that the stars are in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So you look up and you see a glimpse of heaven when you look at the stars.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
With light like hope to mortals given, but the red orbs without beam to thy weariness shall seem as a burning and a fever. So he's saying that when you look up at the stars and you see these red orbs, it's kind of like having a fever or a burning to where you feel like you're sick. Is this true? Is this not? Is this a
Yeah.
fever dream?
That's a good way to say it. Yeah.
Yeah. Which would cling to thee forever, but 'twill leave thee as each star with a dewdrop flies afar. So
Mhm.
basically, he's saying that once the sun comes out and the stars disappear, it will leave with you that burning and fever will be gone, just like when the dew goes away.
Yeah. That's really kind of cool. The one thing that I think is really neat because just for our listeners and our viewers, neither Gina nor I told each other what poem we were going
Mm-hmm.
to analyze before we decided to record. And both of our poems have lines with the word hope capitalized because
Yep.
mine was, yet if hope has flown away, and yours was, I don't remember off the top of my head, the,
Hold on. It's with light like hope to mortals given.
yes. So I think that's very interesting. And if you read enough of Poe's poetry, he does reuse some things, not in the same exact way, but it, there's reminiscences of things from each poem sometimes.
And also, if you pay attention to what he capitalizes,
Hmm.
that in itself gives it personification
Yeah.
because he's capitalizing H in hope as giving it
Yeah.
an entity of a person or something that everyone looks towards, like with God,
Hmm.
like with heaven,
Yeah.
hell in itself, capitalized because it's a place.
Right.
So the
Right.
noun's a person, place, and thing. So by him capitalizing H, he's given it a personification that we can all um, look towards as something more
I totally
instead of
agree.
just, maybe a verb or
Hmm.
an adjective or something like that. It's giving it a whole different outlook.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the terms that we didn't talk about is diction, which is specific word choice.
Mhm.
Authors choose certain words when, especially in poetry, more than I think they do in writing short stories and novels and things,
Mhm.
because poetry is so word driven, especially if depending on what kind of meter you use and
Mhm.
how you want it to flow. And so it's very interesting the words he has chosen in many different of his poems because he could have
Exactly.
used a totally different word to describe things.
And if I remember correctly, quite a few people have referred to him as wordsmith, you
Yes.
know, and most of the famous classic artists and poets like Mark Twain,
Mhm.
Poe, Shakespeare,
He,
Shakespeare
yeah,
himself gave us many of the words that we now use in common language.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So choosing the right word in the right structure of the sentence
Hmm.
gives gives a whole different meaning than just saying, the night was clear and the stars were just there.
Yeah.
you know,
Stars were bright.
the stars are bright and shining, and you know,
Red orbs. It sounds so much better.
exactly. It gives it an ethereal thought because
Yeah.
that was his whole thing. Like I was telling with the title, Spirits of the Dead, he
Yeah.
automatically is invoking in you a thought of what he's talking about. He's talking about ghosts. He's talking about something that is supernatural, that is outside the norm.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah. It's beautiful and brilliant. And yes, I used
mhm.
alliteration on purpose.
Nothing wrong with that. Now, there's one, and this is one thing you don't see a lot of with Poe, but
Yeah.
there's one figure of speech that is my fave, which is the pun. But, Poe didn't use a lot of puns going on.
Yeah, and if he, I'm trying to think, he does that more in short stories with his
Mhm.
satire, but
Yes,
and sometimes they're more, it's almost like kind of like an extended metaphor. It's an extended pun, the whole short story,
yes,
when you think about it.
exactly.
Yeah,
Because most people they attribute puns with comedy.
yeah,
They
abs-
think that goes along with the comedic side of making
mhm,
people laugh, the satire and stuff like
yeah.
that. They don't realize that puns are a figure of speech that you can use in any parts of language.
Mhm. Oh yeah, absolutely. They're fun.
Sometimes, yeah, they are fun.
I think
The
that's why
pun
they're
is
called
fun.
fun. Yeah, because right.
They just, yeah, they put the fun in the pun and the pun in the fun. So,
Yes.
hey.
And so every April, when we are having our Poet Like Poe poetry contest, we want
Exactly.
to talk about different styles of poetry or figurative language devices and things
Hmm.
because the contest is very special to us, and the each year we keep getting more and more submissions from people, and the talent is fantastic, and they
Hmm.
all have had lots of different figurative language devices used, which is exciting.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And everybody knows that Poe himself did not have a structured way of writing his poems. Each one had a different. Now, he did have a structure to himself, but
Mhm.
it wasn't one that we think of like with Shakespeare. Shakespeare was all about the iambic pentameter,
Right. Yes.
the emphasis on every fifth syllable.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
but Poe's, each one of his poems, they have different amounts of stanzas. Like you said, Dream Within a Dream was only two stanzas.
Mhm.
Spirits of the Dead here has only three.
Yeah.
But
And the Raven was trochaic octameter. It's like it's
exactly,
focused on the eight syllables. Yeah. Per line.
exactly. So
Mhm.
there is no, I guess what I'm leading up to is there's no
Yeah.
right or wrong in
No,
how you write your poetry.
no, absolutely.
Most of the time, it is all about, like here with Spirits of the Dead, it's all about conveying that emotion, that feeling, just what you want to say and how you want to say it.
Absolutely. And don't force it. Let it
Nope.
come naturally. And as Jeannie and I have talked, we've talked about this with Wayne O'Brien.
Mm-hmm.
It there's times where your muse, however, whatever you want to call it, just your internal voice or whatever, is giving you lines of poetry or a story
Mm-hmm.
idea. Write it down, do a little voice recording on your phone, because if you don't do that, you're going to lose that information, and it may be something that the world needs to hear. And so
Yeah.
take the time to do it, and try to write it out, because you're being told that for a reason.
Yeah. Your brain and your mind, your body, your soul, everything is giving you an outlet.
Mhm,
In my version of poetry, it's
mhm.
always been an outlet for whatever needs to be. Like if it's something in my soul that needs to be said, if
Mhm.
it's something in my mind that can't get something straight,
Yeah.
or it could be the stress in your body that just needs to get out.
Yeah. Yeah. There's sometimes you just don't know why, but it makes you feel better when you do it.
Exactly. So, and there's no there's no rhyme or reason as how you do your poetry.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
that it's a little different over the years that, when I was being taught and all my wonderful English degrees, that, learning about the quatrain, learning about cinquain, haikus, all those standard different ways of writing from different parts of culture. But the one that always is always free verse, which just lets you let it fly.
Yeah. Just
And then
let it
streams of
loose.
consciousness. Now, streams of consciousness, I'll have to say, is one of the most difficult and very hard to control and get people to accept,
Yes.
and most of the time, because sometimes the streams of consciousness can be so disjointed
Hmm.
that it really doesn't give you that story, doesn't really pull you in as a reader.
It's extremely abstract. Yes.
Exactly. So it's not that it's, not good. It's not that it's
Mhm.
not set up for someone to enjoy. It's just that it is extremely difficult because it is a stream of consciousness.
Yes.
You
Absolutely.
have to follow it. So it's like a roadmap. Sometimes if you follow like the GPS and it takes you 100 miles out of the way and you're going, what in the world? I was just going 2 blocks down the road.
Right.
But a stream of consciousness poetry took you on a nice little road trip and
Yeah.
then right back.
The
And
scenic
you're going,
route.
yeah, took you on the scenic true. But
Oh,
sometimes they're just as fun and
yes.
they give you more because as any of us that have done a lot of reading and poetry and everything, they always say that the road less traveled, Mr. Robert Frost, one of my favorites,
Yes.
diverge into chew. So you never know where it's going to take you. It's mostly all about the journey, not where you get in the end.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So, so yes, our poetry contest
Yes.
is currently going on from
Yes.
April the 1st. Submissions are accepted through May 15th.
Yes. And go to our website, www.sixdegreesofpoe.com, and
Dun,
find
dun.
the 2025 third annual Poet Like Poe Poetry Contest tab. And there
Yes.
is a link for you to submit your poem. There's guidelines. They're very simple guidelines. It pretty much gives you a lot of freedom to write what you want, but
Mhm.
write it in the vein of Poe. Think about
Yes.
the styles he used. Think about genres he used. It doesn't have to be horror. It can be, he wrote multiple different genres. And so like a satire poem would be very appropriate.
Yeah. Or an
He
ode.
wrote
He
satire.
was very good about writing odes,
Mm-hmm.
especially to his
Absolutely.
love, his lady loves. He got the ode going on.
Yes. And the contest is free and there are prizes. So,
Mhm. For first, second, third, we
and
have the prizes for those. We have our judges on standby, ready to start judging
mhm,
on May the 16th.
that's right. And so the two categories we have to enter, if you're 11 to 17 years old, you enter the youth. And if you are 18 plus, for the adult category.
Right.
And the winners will be announced on July 1st.
Dun dun dun.
Yay!
Yep. So this is why another reason we chose talking about figurative language to give you a little help if you want to just think about it. And
Absolutely.
you don't really, and this is another thing, you don't have to overthink it.
No,
Because sometimes, as in this reading, I guarantee you, Poe didn't sit there and go, oh, I need to use this figurative speech. I
right.
need to use this type of language. I need to do that. No, he literally wrote, and I guarantee you the man probably didn't even go back and think about figurative language.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
true.
it's not about that. This is just to help you just think about how how you think about things, how you explain things.
Exactly. And one other thing that Poe did, as we know, is because there are different poems have multiple versions that he
Mm-hmm.
did. He edited his work up,
Oh,
until he
absolutely.
died. And that goes with poetry and his short stories and things.
Mm-hmm.
And so don't be afraid once you've written it out and you don't like something, edit it, change it.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay because you want to make it what you're trying to convey to the reader.
Yeah, you want it to make the best of you.
Yes, absolutely.
And some of us, some days you wake up and you're like, okay, you just go through life on a daily, and then the next day you wake up and you're like, woohoo! And things are just right with the world.
Absolutely.
So you never know.
That's right. And some other things we want to share. So our next Poe Unplugged is April 29th. That's at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you also go to our website, you go to Poe Unplugged on the website, and there is a link to register. This month, we're going to be reading an essay by Stephen King, and it's the genius of the telltale heart, something like that. But it's a
Yes.
book edited by Michael Connolly. And Jeannie, do you remember the title? It escapes my brain for just a minute. I'll talk about it.
Hold on.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, hold
while
on. You keep talking and I'll find
yes,
it, right?
and it just escaped my brain. And so we're reading that essay by Stephen King about Poe and Poe's Telltale Heart. And then we have kind of asked on the website, if you haven't read Telltale Heart in a while, you might want to reread it. And then if you can find, Stephen King wrote a short story called The Old Dude's Ticker, which is his version, a modern version of the Telltale Heart that he wrote in the 70s. And so we're going to
Yes.
also discuss that as well.
Yes, the book is The Mystery Writers.
It isn't In
Hold
the
on.
Shadow of the Masters.
It's Mystery Writers American Presents In the Shadow of the Master,
Right.
Classic Tales by Edgar Allan Poe, and essays by Jeffrey Deaver, Nelson DeMille, Tess Gerritsen, Sue Grafton, Stephen King, Laura Lippman, Lisa Scotland, and 13 others. And it's all edited by Michael Connolly.
Yes. And that our Poe Unplugged is also free. And if you do register, we will send you an email the morning of the event, which again is April 29th that evening. And we have tons of fun. And if you've watched or listened to any of those episodes, you know. So come join us.
Yep.
And then the last thing we want to remind you is we are doing a event that is going to be live streamed on YouTube on May 17th, and it's called Doomsday. Jeannie,
Dun, dun,
you
dun.
want to talk more about it?
Yes, Doomsday is in connection with the National Edgar Allan Poe
Theater,
Society
theater,
theater. Yeah,
you know.
theater. Um, Theater Society. So I was, just add that in there. Out of Baltimore, Maryland. They started this, I think this is their third year. This
Fourth,
year will
I
be
think.
third
I think
or
maybe,
fourth year.
yeah.
And when they started it, it's a play off of kind of what they do in Ireland to celebrate.
Ulysses by James Joyce.
Exactly. Thank you. I couldn't remember exactly which one. I knew it was
Right.
James Joyce, but I couldn't remember exactly which one. And they call that one Bloomsday.
Yes.
So Alan Zavostovich at the
Alex.
National,
Alex. Yeah.
that's what I said, Alex
I thought you said
Zavostovich.
Alan. I thought you said Alan.
No, no. The Alex and the Zavostovich kind of like mixed in together there.
Gotcha. Okay.
So he decided to create something called Doomsday to
Yes.
celebrate Edgar Allan Poe, the master of the horror. So it is a 24-hour reading readathon
Hmm.
of Edgar Allan Poe's works. Now, this year, he has asked 6 Degrees of Poe to start our own section here in the Nashville, Tennessee area. And we agreed. However, we are not doing the full 24 hours this year. We are only doing 8 hours.
Yes.
So, but that's okay because we've
Yes.
got some wonderful people joining us.
We
We
do.
have retired professors. We have what's this radio
Teachers,
personalities. We have teachers. We have educating
a
directors like
former
from
horror
Hermitage.
host.
Yes, former horror host. We
Mhm.
have all kinds, and we are doing it as a fundraiser for our local national Nashville. Good Lord, Nashville and Nashville sounds so good. Nashville Humane Association.
Yes. Yes.
I
I
always
always
have
say
to make sure I
society.
say it correctly.
Yes.
Nashville Humane Association. And we
Yes.
chose that one this year because we wanted something that would tie to Poe. And as everybody knows, even though Poe wrote a few rather black cat things about torturing animals, it
Mhm.
wasn't really because the animal got its revenge. But he was an animal lover. He loved birds. He had his own cat, Katarina, that sit on his shoulder while he wrote. So we chose the Nashville, Association to help them out with our reading, our
Yes.
readathon.
Yes.
So it's going to be May the 17th. We are going to be live starting at 11 a.m.
Mhm.
via our YouTube channel, and it'll go to 7 p.m. So our 8 hours is going to start 11 a.m. Central Standard Time,
Which is 12 p.m.
Eastern Standard.
Eastern time. So that's why
Yes.
we moved ours up an hour. So we're basically starting at the same time as the East
Yes.
Coast. But he's
Exactly.
also got other areas. Ohio Poe fans with Mel Grosvenor is going to be doing
Hmm.
readings. Also in the UK and Brazil. I think
Brazil,
is
and
France
there's,
one too?
I believe, I can't remember if it's Italy or
I
France.
can't. Yeah, it's one of the two. Yeah, it's international.
It's international.
Yes.
So it's, please come out, join us, help support our fundraiser. You can go catch their 24 hours when you get tired of us. But
But
but it is going to be a back-to-back readathon of Edgar Allan Poe's works.
absolutely, yes.
So
And our section, every work we're going to do, poetry and short stories, nothing is being repeated. So that's a really cool thing.
yeah, it's just 8 hours of non-repetitive. Now, if we were doing the 24 hours, that'd be a different time. Yeah. But
We
since we're just doing 8 hours, now it is going to be uh on our YouTube live channel.
hmm?
It's at Poe Unplugged 3978.
Yes.
If you aren't already subscribed, please hop over,
Yes.
take it on. So, we
Like
are
what
going
we
to be
do,
live.
subscribe, and that will be lovely. And,
Mhm,
thinking about, how this doomsday event is growing throughout, the United
mhm.
States, other countries, the more we Poe, the more we grow.
Bro, woohoo! Yeah, that can be weird when you say it that way.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway,
Yeah.
it's like we're throwing Miracle Grow on ourselves. Whee! We're growing into Poe fanatics. Oh, wait a minute, we
It's
already are Poe fanatics. Never mind.
right.
Uh, but in the aspect of it, so hopefully this year will be a success, and then next year we may extend it to 12 hours, or we may try to go for the whole 24 hours. We're just
Right.
gonna see how the first 8 hours play out.
Yes, absolutely.
So, but yeah, we're hoping for success, and we're hoping that next year maybe we can get some local celebrities involved and stuff like that. But you never know.
Yes, absolutely. You never know who might show up.
Exactly.
Oh,
Or, Poe may be there in spirit.
yes, hopefully he will be. Well, I
Exactly.
guess Jeanie.
We are
Oh,
Poe
Out.
His poetic genius was eminently lyrical, and there is a music in his work that has been reached but by few. It has lately become the fashion to disparage his poetry, but no critic can destroy its charm. That it has a somber cast is undisputed, but it also possesses a melody that sweeps one along through an enchanted realm of dim vales and shadowy woods and music-haunted floods, and leaves a memory that grows stronger instead of fading into a dim vagueness. Quote from Thomas S. Collier on Edgar Allan Poe, November 1878.